Hello, everyone. My name is Yegor and I am the sustainability intern by YAF for Development and the Sustainable Goals. A few days ago, we had a webinar regarding the nuclear energy, decarbonising or not. We had 11 participants. Unfortunately, it wasn't recorded due to technical issues. That's why I'm making now this video. So first of all, I would like to say that nuclear energy it's very important topic and very controversial nowadays. This topic is the full of the uh, politics and it's big discussions are going on now in Europe. Should the nuclear energy be the part of the European energy system or not? So I would like to start my presentation with the showing the table of the content. I'm gonna start with the introduction, then switch to the definitions, principles, and the characteristics of fusion. Next one gonna be advantages and disadvantages. Next one, the main technological solutions in the main sectors, then the results and discussion, finally conclusion, and the future research challenges. So I would like to start the introduction with the giving the brief history of such a technology. First of all, that in 1896, the Anthony Becquerel, the French scientist who was researching about the photofilms and photo effect, find out that if he put some ore in a black box, um, and if this ore has some uranium inside, the photofilm inside will switch from the full black to the white, because also there is some radiation from this ore, and that's he called as a radioactivity. The next step was the discovering by the Curie couple of the radium and the polonium in 1898. Important development was that the two German scientists, as Otto Gahn and Fritz Strassmann, find out that uranium could fizz. Basically means that they try to get the heavier element by using the bombing with the neutron of the uranium atom, and they expected to just to get a heavier atom, but it didn't work for them, so the atom just split it, so they got two atoms from one, and this was the, let's say, opening of the fission of the uranium. And by using such a technology, in 1942, the Enrico Fermi created the first nuclear reactor in the USA. It calls the Chicago Pile 1. So important to mention that it produced a very small amount of energy, almost neglectable, but at least this showed that some energy could be received from the uranium. And since it was the time of the Second World War, the main researchers were focused on the making the weapon from this new technology, so which led to the creating of the two bombs, which were dropped by the U.S. Forces to the Japan, to the Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So the humanity saw the power of the atom. So, and after the ending of the Second World War, there was um, some peaceful usage of the nuclear as a EBRY. So the first electricity which we gathered from the nuclear reactor, and this electricity was enough to make the few lamps work. And just years after, in the USSR was built the first nuclear power plant in Obninsk. Important to know that this nuclear power plant already were useful in the sense that it provided electricity for the whole city. So it was enough to supply the whole city with the electricity just from this nuclear power plant. After it was the era of active construction of the nuclear power plants in the China, in the Japan, in the Germany, in the USA and other countries. But this time finished after the few incidents like a 3 Mile Island incident in the USA, the Chernobyl incident in USSR, and basically it's affected the Europe. And the last one was in the Fukushima one, the incident when it was the big earthquake and the tornado in the Japan, and a lot of people had to leave their houses just because it was the risk of the uh, leak of the nuclear compound of the radioactivity. And in nowadays, there are more than 400 reactors is operating around the world, and nuclear power provides around 10% of the world's electricity. So the main drivers in this field is France, China, Russia, and the United States, of course, which actively building the new reactors to expand or just to replace the old ones. So it's important to explain the main principle of the nuclear fusion. So as already mentioned, we have the atom of the uranium, and we basically bomb this with the neutron. So it's like penetrated inside, and basically this is the cause that it splits for the two smaller atoms and produce the big amount of the energy. As well, important to know that some other neutrons is flying away. For example, it could be two or three another ones, which basically means the chain reaction. So we got one splitting from one neutron, then we got three more, and this three is going to another three one, and this is increase rapidly. Yeah, so this fusion could be controlled and uncontrolled. So the way how we control this, it's using of the special rods which made it from the boron or cadmium, which actually can absorb these neutrons, which were showed here. Yeah, and it's important to know that energy density is quite high in such a type of the material. So, for example, by using 1 gram of the uranium, we can get the same amount of energy as a 3 tons of coal. And the biggest advantage of the nuclear energy, of course, it's the radioactive waste. So, because we always have some waste produced by the nuclear power plants, and in our days, it's complicated to find out what we're gonna do with this. And I would like also to mention some types of the nuclear reactors. So, for example, the two most used, it's a pressurized water reactor and the boiling water reactor. So, and also I would love to explain the principle of work on example of the pressurized water reactor. So, as you could see on the picture here, we have the water pipe, which is going inside of the reactor. It it's heated there because of of the fusion, and then it's going to the another reservoir where it's connected, but not directly with the another reservoir with water. And we heat this water in the second reservoir because of the heat exchange. It start to boil, and it's going to the pipe, then to the turbine, and it's spin the turbine. The turbine connected to the generator, so electricity starts to going through the lines. Then, because some work was done by the steam, it cooled down and become the water again, and then we repeat the cycle. So the main difference compared to the boiled water reactor, that here we have a pressure tank. So basically, we have the huge amount of water here, which doesn't let this water just start to evaporate. So the pressure here could be hundreds of bar, and this is the main difference. The different type of fuels could be used for operating of the nuclear power plants. So the most common one, this is the uranium 235, which normally we receive from the uranium 238. And another one could be the plutonium 239, which we cannot find in nature at all. So we receive this from already recycled uranium fuel. It's like a second turn fuel, let's put it this way. Yeah, important to know that normally it's easier to operate with uranium because it's more stable and, let's say, less spoiled the fuel. But still, some nuclear power plants could operate on the plutonium as well. During our webinar before, we had the Kahoot game, so which has basically the 10 questions. So it's like a quiz just for memorizing everything what was mentioned before, and just to make you think a little bit. So feel free to join this game. So this game going to be open. Just use your phone and scan the QR or just enter the pin. And I hope you will enjoy this. But we coming back to the advantages of the nuclear energy. Of course, it has some advantages, otherwise no one would use it. And the important one that the energy density is the super high there. So as already was mentioned, that it could be just that 1 gram of the uranium has the same amount of energy as 3 tons of coal. And another important thing that it's a reliable supply of baseload power. What basically means that compared to the solar panels, um, solar panels, the nuclear power plant works 24/7. It works every day with the same amount of energy. Amount of energy which we got from this could be increased or decreased, depends on our needs. Yeah, and this is also important that for some countries which doesn't have access to the um, some raw materials like the coal or oil or gas, the nuclear energy could be important for their energy independence. But of course, it has some risks and challenges. And as was mentioned before, the one of them is the radioactive waste, which is could be quite toxic and could be difficult to maintain. Another one, this is the high initial cost. So basically, this is really expensive to build a nuclear power plant. This required the high expertise, and just a few countries really knows how to do this. As well, it could be limited fuel supply. Not every country has access to the uranium. So the biggest suppliers in the world is the Kazakhstan, Australia, Canada, and some others. So basically means if you want to get some uranium, you have to make a deal with such countries. And the last but not least could be nuclear proliferation. For example, the Iran is well known for this, so they always say that okay, we just make the peaceful atom, but no one really knows how it's gonna work and what they're gonna do. The same example was with the North Korea because they promised that they just want to have the peaceful atom for the increasing the life conditions, but then they just created a nuclear weapon from this because the principle of operating is very close, and it's not so difficult to make a nuclear bomb just after you have the nuclear power plant. As well, I prepared the PESTEL analysis. PESTEL is abbreviation which basically means political, economical, social, technological, environmental, and legal factors which affects on such a type of the technology. For example, as the political factor to construct this could be energy independence, which is important for some countries. And uh, as the other side of coin could be geopolitical risks with building such a things and international treaties. From the economical factors, it is high capital costs, as was mentioned again, and but also in the end, this could provide the long-term electricity prices as a low ones because the energy from the nuclear power plant by itself, once it's constructed, is really cheap. And of course, such big projects always supports the industrial base of the region, gives the new jobs to the people, and so on. From the social point of view, the public has a fear in front of the technology after the incidents, and exists the ethical concern over waste and intergenerational justice. For example, if we use a lot of the nuclear power plants nowadays and we have no way to recycle the waste, basically means that our children or grandchildren probably has to do this, and basically means that we put our problem on them. From the technological perspective, there are a lot of new researches and new ways how to get the energy. For example, the small modular reactors, as well the updated generation 4 reactors, and the technology as a fusion, which I will mention later as well. For example, the big and wide usage of the AI and automatization also reduce the human factor risk. And as well, we could produce the hydrogen, for example, during we produce energy as well. And hydrogen could be very useful in the sense of the storing energy or producing the ammonia, which is also quite important for the other agriculture. From the environmental perspective, this technology has very low the CO2 emissions. So basically, this is very clean energy, and energy density is very high. So we don't need a big space. We don't need whole fields of the wind turbines or solar panels. But we need the huge amount of the water. So, and even if we will not make this water dirt, still we have to take a lot of water, evaporate this, take more water to cool down, and so on, so on. Yeah, and from the legal perspective, such an object as a nuclear power plant has to follow the strict regulation, licensing, and so on, not only inside of the country but outside as well, because this affects not only one country, but this type of things could affect the whole continent. All right, let's continue with the technological solutions. As I already mentioned, there is some new technologies like small modular reactors, which basically mean it's the smaller copy of the big nuclear power plant, so which help us to diversificate the energy supply and make the system more decentralized. For example, the China invest a lot in such a technology, and they could have the small modular reactor for the also one city far away from the capital, somewhere in mountains, or for the few villages, which also good for the local communities. The nuclear energy could be used in the transportation, for the power ships, for the submarines, for the icebreakers, and so on. Could be used for the space exploration because it has very big amount of energy stored in a small volume, so could be good for the satellites, for the some space missions like Mars, Perseverance, and so on. And of course, it's used for the military applications like producing the nuclear bombs and so on. And to answer the main question of the presentation, we have to have a look on the sustainability of the nuclear fission. So we have to mention that sustainability has the environmental pillar, the economic pillar, and the social political pillar. And for example, the environmental pillar could be the management of the radioactive waste, minimal greenhouse emission, cooling process requires large amount of water, and the mining of uranium, of course. For example, the mining of uranium, like general mining, especially if you use the open method, open mine, it's quite toxic for the environment. From the economical perspective, as was mentioned, that it has the high capital costs, and this. But from the good side, it promotes the energy security and impact the local and national economies by creating jobs. And from the social political pillars, so the public trust and acceptance, it's always the big question. Not every society could trust and could accept such a technology. Um, and equitable energy access is also the important point by finishing with the community of well-being. Let's also discuss the international experience. I took the six countries as example: the France, China, Germany, Russia, Japan, and USA, and to have a look deeply about how they maintain with the such a thing as a nuclear energy. And I split them on three groups. The first one, the nuclear expansion and export, and I put the Russia and China there because these countries try to expand as more as possible their nuclear energy programs. The next group of countries, it's USA and France, and I put them in the group innovation and maintenance. So they doesn't really try to expand and increase amount of the nuclear reactors. They just try to innovate, maintenance, and update them. So to keep them fresh, because normally the lifetime of the reactor is around 50, 70 years, and then this required the complete change. And there are also the countries which try to phase out or restart. For example, the Japan after the Fukushima tried to shut down all their nuclear power plants. The same was with Germany. Uh, it could be that with the new German government will be changed soon, but still for now Germany doesn't really have the nuclear power plants which operate in our days. And by talking about the Bulgaria, in Bulgaria also there is the Kozloduy nuclear power plant. This is the big power plant which is important for the national economy in the sense that this produces one third of national electricity. Before it was closed because the Bulgaria had to follow the EU regulations as the member of it. But after they change the reactors after they update them, so the Kozloduy operates again. And before in the 80s, it was the plan to build another nuclear power plant in the Bulgaria, but the project was cancelled. Uh, and in nowadays, Bulgaria even export the electricity from this nuclear power plant to the neighbor countries, uh, being like a regional energy hub. And the probable future of the Kozloduy, it's just a modernizing and updating with the new technologies. Uh, so it can still be very safe and sustainable for the whole country and for the region. We have to talk as well about the nuclear waste management because the waste is a big problem of the nuclear power plants. So basically, we can split the waste on three types. It's low, intermediate, and high level waste. Basically, the low waste could be the suits or gloves which workers use. It's not so difficult to maintain such a nuclear waste. Intermediate could be the bricks which used for the reactor beam, some parts which is connected to this, and the high level, of course, it's used nuclear fuel, so used uranium and so on. And this is the biggest problem which we try to solve because it could be very dangerous and very toxic for the environment and for the life on the Earth. So the future of nuclear energy, I see personally optimistic with the technological developments to make it with the focus on making this safer, more efficient, and more sustainable. Uh, the nuclear energy has a chance on the surviving, and this could be the good combination with the full renewables like the solar panels, wind turbines, and hydro energy in some countries. Once it becomes cheaper and safer. Yeah, important to mention as well there are some researches regarding such an energy field. For example, the fusion, it's a little bit other process which basically exists on the sun. So in fusion, we are not splitting the atom. We combine two atoms with each other on a high speed, and once they collide, they make the bigger atom, and they produce the big amount of energy. So another important thing could be the making of nuclear batteries for some applications, as already mentioned before. For example, for the space exploration, the nuclear batteries could be very well used in a sense that it can serve the 50, 80 years without any charge on one charge. So what is very critically important. Yeah, and there are also some research is about the using thorium as a fuel for the nuclear power plants, in a sense that the thorium is not so toxic, and the utilized the thorium could be much easier rather than other compounds. To give the conclusion, I would say that the nuclear energy is a powerful and efficient source of the electricity with the numerous benefits, including low carbon emissions and high energy output. However, it doesn't bring some obstacles such as nuclear waste disposal, safety concerns, and high costs. With continued technology breakthroughs such as small modular reactors and nuclear fusion, nuclear energy appears to have a bright future as a sustainable alternative to fossil fuels. And with such words, I would like to finish my presentation and say thanks to everyone for the listening. And if you have any questions or comments, please join our Facebook page, which you can see on the screens. And there you can give your feedback or ask the question or maybe even say something to me. Thank you again and bye bye.